Oh, shoot.
Not on the inside. You think you're pretty. Not on the inside. You think you're better. You probably are. You think you're better. You probably are. I will beat on Demon Slayer. I will slay the slayers. I will beat on Demon Slayer. I will slay the slayers. If she doesn't drink me dry, I'll stay behind while she lies. If she doesn't drink me dry, I'll stay behind while she lies. Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! You think you're hot? You're totally not. You think you're hot? You're totally not. You're so conceited. Yes, you are. You're so conceited. Yes, you are. I will beat on Demon Slayer. I will slay the slayers. I will beat on Demon Slayer. I will slay the slayers. If she doesn't drink me dry, I'll stay behind while she lies. If she doesn't drink me dry, I'll stay behind while she lies. Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Think you're pretty. Not on the inside. Think you're pretty. Not on the inside. Think you're better. You probably are. Think you're better. You probably are. I will beat on Demon Slayer. I will slay the slayers. I will beat on Demon Slayer. I will slay the slayers. If she doesn't drink me dry, I'll stay behind while she lies. If she doesn't drink me dry, I'll stay behind while she lies. Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Get on the head, get on the head, get on the head. Burn it! Death Starters United! Death Starters United! Holy gods! Holy gods! Evil nails are taking over! Evil nails are taking over! Will you fight? Will you fight? You must choose a side. We are 70 years. We are 70 years. It's no food, it's no water. It's y'all do, yeah, I love. So what? Let one here, let one here, let one here. What is it? Lord have mercy on the wretch's house. Lord have mercy on the wretch's house. Please excuse me, can't think for themselves. Please excuse me, can't think for themselves. We are 70 years. We are 70 years. No food, no water. Y'all do, yeah, I love. Lord have mercy on the wretch's house. Lord have mercy on the wretch's house. Please excuse me, can't think for themselves. Please excuse me, can't think for themselves. So what? I don't wanna hear, I don't wanna hear, I don't wanna hear. What are you doing? Lord have mercy on the wretch's house. Lord have mercy on the wretch's house. Please excuse me, can't think for themselves.
Recently, we watched it form as two unspeakable
Please
tragedies
excuse me,
unfold in
can't
El
think
Paso,
for
Texas,
themselves.
and Ohio. Like all Americans, we at the NRA extend our deepest sympathies to the victims and their families, and we salute the courage of our law enforcement officials approaching the blockers. But there's nothing about an insane criminal committing a horrible act that should lead to the government taking guns away from law-abiding citizens.
Lord have mercy on the wretch's house. Lord have mercy on the wretch's house. Please excuse me, can't think for themselves. Please excuse me, can't think for themselves.
What, Xavier? Alrighty. Welcome to the Lady Lacey Show. I hope y'all are doing good. Oh, y'all didn't see any of that, did you? Dang it! Share screen. Well, nobody's here anyway. I've actually, since I've upgraded, I've actually like lost subscribers. So sorry about my lost subscribers. I'm just getting rid of the dead weight. But let's start out in prayer. Dear Jesus, thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for my YouTube friends. Thank you for Flat Earth Fokker, Mikey Smith, Zoom Truth, Karen B, Major Flat D, Concerned Citizen. Let's see who else got up in here. Voynich. Thank you for all these wonderful people that you have blessed with knowledge. I'm so grateful that I'm not alone and that I have my friends and peers. Please let them know that Jesus loves them and that you love them and that you will take care of them in their need and send angels to them. And all I got to use is your name, Jesus. And we're going through a lot right now in life. And I just thank you for your protection, the blood of Jesus Christ. Thank you for dying for our sins. And I hope that if anybody's having trouble today, they can go ahead and leave it in the comments, not too specific, and I can write it in my new prayer request Bible, and we can hopefully look back and see how our prayers were answered. Not hopefully, faithfully we can look back and watch that our prayers were answered. I just love spreading. Please give me more opportunities to use me. I'm here for you, God, and let's hope that this broadcast, the Soldiers of Satan replay, really, really, really opened some eyes, because it opened up my eyes, and I can't believe I lived in darkness for so long. But I thank you so much, Jesus, for letting me, inviting you into my life, and then you doing something with it. Thank you for the vagabond spirit knowledge. And yeah, I see myself in Cain all the time, and I don't want to be Cain, and I don't want to be cursed. I want God in my life. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so welcome to the Lady Lacey Show. I am your friend, and so I'm going to do a replay if I can. If I can. Is this? You are live. No, I know. Can I mute on YouTube? Hey, I can. All right. Can I mute on YouTube? See, I'm new. Why am I still frozen? Oh, I gotta hit play. Hey, I can't. I need to mute. There we go. All right, and take that all the way there. All right, well, then I'll just play this from my YouTube. Fine. And I think what gets to me the most is I've met so many people that have said I've been abused, sexually abused as a child. Now, I wasn't sexually abused as a child, but I've met a lot of people that were sexually abused as a child. And it's like used as pity. They use it as pity because I'm like, why are you telling me this? You barely know me. But they go, but I'm really smart. It goes, I was sexually abused as a kid, but I'm really smart. That's how it usually goes. And now it makes sense. They're super soldiers. It's a program to mess with children when they're young. And then that way they grow up. They're super smart. They're ultra aware. And it's scary, guys. It's scary. I I don't want to say people that have been abused as children are bad people, because I still have some friends that were abused as children and they are good people. But I have had some issues, so I'm not going to lie about that. But I still keep a few of them around. But it's bad, guys. It's bad. All right. It's really hard for me to make friends. But I do have a few older friends I keep in contact with. Like, I can make a phone call and be okay. You know what I'm saying? Oh, look, you're lazy. All right. So, oh shoot. Bam. Everything starts with, well, welcome to the Lady Lacey Show. I'm Lacey, and I'm a part-time conspiracy whatever, and all of this is my opinion, and I don't even know if these people I talk about are real people or characters, but honestly, I'm just here to talk about Kathy O'Brien today, because that one really sunk in with me. But before we get started, I want to put you in a happy place. So, oh shoot. Ready? We'll get there. Wave Beats Music. So, my friend Kathy O'Brien. Oh, good. There's like little clips. Oh, good. Good. All right. It's, I need something longer. Yeah, I want royalty free. Okay. I'm new. Sorry, guys. Okay. Guess I'm gonna have to learn how to edit too. And again, if you stayed this long, welcome to the Lady Lacy Show, Agents of Satan / Super Soldiers. I wish I did it when we watched. I am Lady Lacy. I've been studying conspiracies ever since I was a young person. I should have been a librarian. I am just one hell of a researcher, and you never know. One day I still might be. And I like to categorize, document, some. So. The Agents of Satan. So I never. This is not something I came up with myself. First off, I have Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ can make you a super soldier. So, whatever we say about the enemy, you still have a fighting chance. You can always accept Jesus Christ in your heart and just be blessed with crazy knowledge and the will to survive and hope, fearless. And I'm just getting better and better and better. To no delay. We might come back to that. That thing is, I think we need to watch this like 1,500 times. Start it over. Shoot. I don't understand why I can't have like little box. There we go. And there we go.
Fantasize will happen all across this great land. As a matter of fact, around the world. You've heard a number of speakers in the past that have.
Hello, Flat Earth Preacher. Welcome. Welcome to the Lady Lacey Show. Have you ever seen this before? This is an oldie but goodie.
Enlightened you on a variety of subjects. The one tonight, this is very apropos that it be Halloween. This is probably the worst story you've ever heard. I spent a great deal of time trying to not want to believe.
This is the worst story I've ever heard. 100%. Oh, well, good. See, I'm bringing up some old videos to watch. I watched these at like, I don't know, 5 years into YouTube. Like, and I didn't process. I recommend watching this over.
Believe this.
Over.
But unfortunately, the evidence is that support not only Cathy O'Brien's story, and the other evidence is that that Senator John DeCamp from the Nebraska cover-up, Franklin cover-up as it's known, support what you're going to be hearing tonight.
Hi, Chris
In addition to that, there has been a tremendous amount.
Hi, Chris Matt. This video weighed heavily on my heart, so I'm watching it again.
Amount of information that has surfaced over the past really 3 years that has come from people who have been on the front lines. Not only therapists, but we have got generals and colonels from all branches of the military and members of intelligence that have provided us with literally tons of documentation, not only supporting Cathy's story, but thousands of others just like her. Cathy O'Brien is not unique. I wish she were, because if she were, I would not be in front of you right tonight.
Thank you for the heart.
Because it would mean that this problem went no further. Unfortunately, that is not the case. What has happened to Cathy O'Brien is happening all around the world, and it's happening in daycare centers. It's happening in homes, and not homes of Appalachian people who lack total education or lack any education or any written language skills, who have been practicing incest for years. This is happening as a result.
Thanks for the heart, Flat Earth Preacher.
Of a very coordinated effort that has come out of the intelligence communities, again, from around the world. My role in all of this is relatively simple, but nevertheless complex. I'm going to give you all a background tonight of about a few minutes of MK Ultra information.
Okay, this background he goes through is really good. It's like the potatoes of the stew. Cathy is the meat, and he's the potatoes and onions.
And I request that you all write some questions down for us. We cannot take verbals. We will take written questions. You don't have to sign them, but put your name down there, and we'll attempt to answer as many as possible. Please make the questions relevant to the subject matter, because I can't, nor can Cathy, discuss what we may surmise are other victims, other than the ones that are the most obvious ones, like Timothy McVeigh. And again, it is not our experience. We have no proof. We only have Mr. McVeigh's admissions and some other information that would support it. But that's an example of our limits. We prefer to answer any and all questions individually, standing up in front of you, because there is no such thing as a bad question. We spent about 5.5 years on the lecture circuit with law enforcement and mental health. Now, that was done to protect us. It was also done to ferret out as much information as we could regarding other survivors, and as well as ferreting out information through law enforcement, or I should say cooperative law enforcement, who were like you all, they're free thinkers, and they knew something was going on, but they didn't understand it. I will attempt to give you as much background on myself so that you'll have some understanding of how I was able to do what we've accomplished, Kathy and I. But our main concern, of course, remains the same focus, and that is to get this information out to the populace of this country and all the other countries that are affected, and we don't know many that aren't, and also to affect Kathy O'Brien's institutionalized daughter, Kelly, who, by the way, went into an institution when she was 8 years old, right after I rescued them, and she remains in that institution or a institutionalized setting to this day. I don't know how many of you all can imagine being a child and being raised in a mental institution, but I can assure you it is not a pretty sight, even though Kelly has not been mistreated as she had been prior to going into the institution. External control of the mind is not something new. It's thousands of years old. It's recorded in caves. It's recorded the exact formula for trauma-based mind control in the Egyptian.
Okay, so it's ancient history, guys. Mind control is ancient history. It takes me back to Bible times and the devil and his secret and his agents of Satan.
Look at the dead. Adolf Hitler was particularly interested in mind control, and he assigned his right-hand man, Heinrich Himmler, to do some research, particularly on the families of Northern European.
It all started in Germany. Everything, like, was Germany like the creation of mankind up there or something? Like, it just seems like socialism's from Germany, Protestantism is from Germany. I mean, wow. They got ancient history, druids. Maybe Germany is Babylon.
Multi-generational, sexually abused, psychologically abused, physically abused children. You see,
they have good cars too. They're very smart people. Well, we'll figure out. I mean, not all of them, but I feel like it's the same as today.
I'm sure each of us understands. Those of us that read the Bible and understand its literal interpretation about the sins of the father, understand what multi-generational abuse means. In this case, multi-generational abuse, and that begins, by the way, at birth, involves horrendous sexual and psychological and physical abuse that is put on these children by their caregivers. Well, Adolf Hitler knew that these people who are abused become very, very receptive to external control of their mind. They also develop some
the news, mass media, owned by 6 companies, most of it. Like, they aren't going to let someone like me be on radio. Does that make sense?
incredible abilities, like 44 times visual acuity. Now, I know that it doesn't take a rocket scientist, pardon the pun, to figure out how we could use somebody with 44 times the average person's visual acuity. It's called special forces. Special forces individuals are screened very carefully. Now, back when I was working for the Defense Department in a project known as MK Ultra, which was the exact project that Adolf Hitler assigned Himmler to do on multi-generationally abuse.
In India, marriage is common to have a 10-year-old bride. That's crazy. I mean, it's either too young or too old, right? I think India people are great people. They have wonderful food. But you're right. Like, they're worshiping like animals. And they're really... This is a Bible thing, guys. And I wish I had... You're the preacher. You put in why it's bad to worship him.
Used to children. I saw nothing of what Kathy O'Brien is reporting. I saw no abuse. What I saw in the prison systems and in the mental institutions were people who had a chance to recover their lives and their mind. I saw things that were very benevolent. And I really truly believe the information that I was seeing would eventually reduce our prison and our mental institution populations dramatically, because I saw true rehabilitation occur without the use of trauma. Well, I was sworn to secrecy on the things that I witnessed, on the equipment that was developed, and I can assure you that in 1967, all the way up through 1973, when I was involved in this research as a Defense Department subcontractor, the equipment that I saw then was 25 to 30 years ahead of anything known on this planet.
Okay, so y'all brought that up. I got some girls around that age, and they got tablets, and one of them decided to go on social media, and they're not allowed on social media, and those messages and the grooming was relentless. So great. You wonder these pedophiles, they'll abuse hundreds of children. That's why they get into these daycares he's talking about. And I'm not saying daycares have pedophiles. Everything is just opinion based off this video. So just with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of good daycares out there. But they abuse hundreds of children. How in the world do they manage to do all that? To groom, the hours, the effort. They're super soldiers. Once you cross that line, you get something in this world. But you can't take it with you. My treasures are collected in heaven. So everything I suffer right now, I'm going to get back in heaven with diamonds and gold. It's all being put away for me. Safe. Absolutely safe. So we need, that's just my point of view. People that live, okay, so Flat Earth Preacher, he's doing his job today. Oh, well, you still didn't say why it's bad to worship animals, but here we go. People that live in incest in their families continue to do the same in their families. It is a domino effect. Yes. As Kathy will get on here and tell you, it was her dad that started all this. Sad.
Private sector.
This video was made in 1996. Nobody was talking like this. There was no books on the shelves in the bookstore about this. We didn't have, maybe the internet was like just started, maybe, or maybe not there yet. It was bad. So these people are talking and it's going over everybody's head. And it keeps going over my head. I have to rewatch it. We played this video last night, and I'm sorry we're playing it again today. But, my brain can't handle it. I keep missing things. And she's going to talk about super soldiers. Why are they put under MK Ultra? This is before 9/11. Exactly. I bet everybody thought they were crazy. Flat Earth preacher. Yeah, everything is and has always been kept quiet. Yes. Okay, if you're a super soldier and what would be like a regular person be like to you? You know what I'm saying? Just a pawn. A pawn. This is they're already set up playing the video game. We are just getting started. But we're not. We have Jesus in our heart. We are the super soldiers. They think they can come up with super soldiers, but they can't.
I don't know if I was even seeing a portion of what was actually available. I don't know if what I was witnessing represented even a small percentage of what was actually occurring. But I was put into that job after months and months and months of psychological examinations because they knew I could keep a secret. I was given a Defense Department clearance. I knew about the Heinrich Himmler studies for Adolf Hitler, and I knew that Adolf Hitler wanted to develop some very serious people to put in places to control various regions in what he called, and George Bush called, and Nero called, the New World Order. You see, Adolf Hitler was not the first, nor was George Bush, to fantasize about this hideous idea of totalitarian government enslaving an entire globe through mind manipulation. Now, mind manipulation comes in a lot of forms. You folks in this room are not falling into one big, huge trap, and that is information control. And I, again, thank the Grenada Forum for bringing Kathy and I in to impart this message, because we need your support. This book is not distributed through bookstores for the most part. The few bookstores that do handle it directly with us. To guard the integrity of the book so they would go totally uncensored, we published it ourselves the first time. We now have an opportunity before us because many of the people Kathy has mentioned in the book have been indicted for a variety of reasons, or are facing indictments, or have fled their respective countries, or stepped down from power. For one simple reason: corruption that they could not cover up. Now, the corruption that we're talking about here goes beyond, I hope, most of you all's limits of experience. It certainly went beyond mine. I had a household that was this is totally alien to. But what Adolf Hitler began in his adamant research on, he had the largest number of human subjects from which to work and do his horror on. And it was even accepted by most of the people in his country that these prisoners of war were indeed to be subjected to anything that he chose that would better his country. Well, MK Ultra, took on the same scientist, because in 1947, when the National Security Act was formed, there was a project that was developed called Project Paperclip. There was a few airlines at that time that were cranked up. Capital International Airlines was one of those airlines. I was vice president of Capital Airlines for a period of time. Capital International Airlines. This is very similar to the hat that they wore. By the way, you realize if we could get these guys to all wear a hat, force them into a uniform, our problems are over.
I'm having a moment. I think I'm watching a different video from last night. Just maybe some of the same stuff. I think all the countries are working together, and they have been working together. History's all messed up. We don't know what's up. The only thing I'm trusting right now is the Holy Bible. No extra books. I mean, I will read. I can read, but like, I'm just, I'm just ready. I'm just ready to get geared up and find out who my enemy is, because I've been attacked my whole life, and I'm ready to just be able to counterattack.
I told Kathy, I said, I don't know how to introduce this information. I said, do we come out here and say that we're the first and second oldest professions? All right, I want to see who laughed. Well, Kathy O'Brien certainly is a remarkable person, but I can assure you the prognosis for recovery of someone who has been horribly abused before age 5, before the brain is fully formed, the recovery is I should say the level of recovery is very good. These people can lead normal, productive lives, even though they've experienced, in most cases, a lifetime of horrific abuse. That was the thing that surprised me the most. Now, there are a lot of survivors out there. There are a lot of survivors in various levels of recovery. Kathy is, again, the only one that we know of that is vocal, that has written a book, that's been validated, and we haven't been locked up. Now, I want everybody in this room to understand that neither Kathy or I are suicidal. And we just came back from Arkansas, and I want to tell you, Kathy and I were invited over there to spend 4 days with the investigators because they had found one chapter of her book they were actually able to validate. I said, well, give it to me in print. And I said, we can't do that. And I said, well, okay. Can I use this recording? I was only joking. They patted me down before I went in. But no, these people are what I consider friends of yours and mine. Now, if there are any CIA operatives in this room, you don't have to hold up your hand. But I'll tell you where I'm staying, and I want you to come see me alone. Particularly if you're trying to disrupt what we're doing. Because this information that Adolf Hitler was developing, we developed through Project Paperclip. Project Paperclip was the importation of Nazi and fascist scientists into this country after World War II that saturated our universities, saturated our Fortune 500 corporations, saturated NASA. It built NASA. And it has infiltrated every aspect of society with its filth. Filth and child pornography. Filth and blood rituals and hideous religious beliefs that involve human sacrifice. Anything to traumatize the mind. Some of these, I'm approached by a number of avid researchers that say, well, this is Satan behind it. Well, I want to tell you, these are people behind it because I worked for the airline that brought these folks in. I had no idea what I was involved in, but I was recruited by Capital International Airways for the purposes that I could keep my mouth shut, and I worked on a need-to-know basis. Most operatives do not know who they're working for. There are over 86,000 of them in this country. Now you divide that by 50 and see what you come up with. This place is crawling with Big Brother. The KGB never had that many functioning operatives in high levels as we do in this country. 1984, George Orwell's book really was a grim prophecy that has come true. Most people are saying that we got to stop this New World Order from taking over. It's already here. We're in it. Now let's understand who the players are and some of their tools. Mind control, whether it be trauma-based mind control to develop a totally robotic human being, is one type. Fortunately, it requires a great deal of horrible trauma that somebody's got to put on with these people. And it requires something more than just pushing a button on a console. There is equipment available now that we cannot protect ourselves from. And the amazing part about this equipment is it's available to everyone in this room. I don't quite understand the philosophy about making pain field generators and another device called an MDD-1, which uses a dual coil electromagnet.
You're right, Flat Earth Preacher. The CIA does run the cocaine ring, supposedly. And he gets into that. He does. And he gets deep. Alrighty. But this is a show. Here we go. This is a show. So, hello. Oh gosh. All right. And today I'm having dinner. I got this from Kroger. I don't know if you have a Kroger where you're at, but thank you, Kroger. Rotisserie chicken.
Thank you, Kroger.
And mustard potato salad. Fire. Already ready. Put it on the plate. And I'm not trying to sell Kroger to you, but I am not because I make money off of it, because I don't, but the fact that you need to eat. You need to stay strong. I know in this day and age, we forget to eat, we forget to stay strong, we forget to exercise, but I'm saying it's more than ever for you to say, today's the day, how can I improve myself? And then, they had sushi too. My kids, usually kids don't like sushi, but since I got it and didn't get them any, they're like, let me try it. So they ate like half of it. That's kids. We can have a comment. Flat Earth Preacher. We just saw the New World Order in action. They just faked the beer bug and every country was shut and stopped in its track. One more time. We just saw the New World Order in action. They just faked the beer bug and every country was shut and stopped in its track. 100%. Oh, but where are you at? I like that comment. I don't see it on this one. Live chat. They hid your comment. Oh, there you go. It just took a minute. Alrighty. Thank you, Flat Earth Preacher. Your commentary is helpful. See, now I'm getting excited. Now I'm not even hungry. Oh, we're there. We're there.
Magnetic pulse system, which affects our cerebral cortex. It stops logical thought. You couldn't balance your checkbook if one of these things were turned on, nor could you think to turn it off. any more than Kathy O'Brien could have.
We were somewhere between the light and the medium of chemtrails today in Tennessee. Like there was a big section of open sky, and then like you can tell the chemtrails, they're not like regular clouds. So someone missed a shift today. They must have called out of sick for COVID.
Have thought to have walked away from her victimization. This is not the beaten wife syndrome. This has nothing to do with an economic situation. This has something to do with robotic mind control. There are tons and tons of documents. Transformation of America is a book. Our book, an autobiography, Kathy's autobiography. I wrote the first 4 or 5 chapters to give you a briefing. But what this book contains is her life, that which we can validate. When this book was printed, we had over 27,000 documents. 27,000 documents fit into 5 file cabinets. We now have over 3 tons of paperwork. General Russell Bowen recently, I won't say fled, he didn't like that, I'm sure. General Russell Bowen, who was one of the originators, and he set up Operation Watchtower, the CIA's drug operation. By the way, how many of you believe that the Central Intelligence Agency is the world's largest drug dealer? Can I see? Okay. So that makes our country the largest drug dealer on the face of the earth. And I resent this. I know now why the intelligence community did not want me for an officer. I know now why I was not privy to some of the stuff that I am now, unfortunately, very privy to. Because I think I'd have blown the whistle on them. There's a lot of whistleblowers out here now, and you folks are getting to hear them. You've been hearing them for years. This is one of the longest, oldest running groups that I'm aware of. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. And I see some people that, if they were in my position, would do exactly the same thing Kathy and I have had to do. I'm not into this. I was hired because I could keep secrets. This is against my programming. But I can assure you of this. It would be against God and everything that I am if I didn't get up here and talk and present Kathy O'Brien so that she can present her story. Kathy and I are really humbled by the number of people that we see that would have done the same thing. And people come up and say, oh man, we really appreciate what you're doing. I said, well, thank you. And I appreciate hearing that. I even appreciate people when they say, this is hard to believe. I'm going to look at this book and I'm going to look at these documents. I tell them, please, please, please do this. Look in the back of our book and you'll get a thumbnail sketch of some books that you can get that are written by doctors, intelligence officers, and a number of other concerned professionals who present the elements of what Kathy experienced. In 1977, the 95th U.S. Congress had met because this is good news, because I wouldn't have 1 ounce of credibility up here as far as MK Ultra goes if this didn't come out, and I couldn't even tell you the code name. But in 1977, the 95th U.S. Congress met to address an issue that a Dr. Ewing Cameron, the founder of the American Psychiatric Association, the APA, the lobby group in Washington that controls what doctors do for our heads when we run into trouble. APA, psychiatry is the youngest of all the healing arts, and it is the most primitive of them all because, yes, and I'm sure there's psychiatrists, may be psychiatrists in this room after that clapping. I'm sure they won't hold their hands up, but I know there are therapists in here. I've seen 2 already. These therapists know exactly what I'm talking about because the information that they're provided by their lobby has been carefully screened. Information on rehabilitating victims of mind control is not only scarce, but it's required some incredible efforts by some brave individuals who wound up getting sued because they could not violate the civil rights of the individual that they were actually treating. The situation with Kathy and I was very different. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't a psychiatrist. I had no insurance or practice or license to protect. So I kept Kathy from reading newspapers. You see, when I rescued her on February the 8th, 1988, she didn't know her name, how old she was, or where she'd been. I'd seen this with people involved in espionage, and I immediately thought that Kathy had been an information courier, even though she was dressed like a prostitute, walked like a prostitute, and talked like somebody that was leading a Christian choir somewhere. It was such a conflict. I couldn't quite grasp this contrast until I was given a great deal of information from some people involved in intelligence in this country and abroad. I was fed a treatment modality that ultimately would lead to putting Kathy O'Brien free again for the second time in her life. The first time was when she was born, and it stopped right there. Kathy O'Brien had been a victim of the most horrendous abuse system known to man. The type of mind control, again, that Adolf Hitler thought that he could use on certain individuals, putting them in positions of extraordinary power and having invisible strings, master puppeteer to their minds and what they said. I don't know if we have politicians like that now or not, because it seems like you don't have to put them under mind control. They'll do anything that corrupt members of Congress persuade them to do. I've known several corrupt congressmen that didn't have to be blackmailed with sex, that didn't have to be enticed with money or drugs. They just simply were corrupt. You see, a sociopath is a very outgoing individual. Leaders. Yeah, leaders. Yeah. Unfortunately, sociopaths have no conscience, no expression of soul. They do not relate to anyone else's pain except it gives them pleasure. MK Ultra was designed and had many, many sub-projects for developing the perfect soldier, the perfect espionage agent, things that I was told that would cover an area of our national security that no soldier and no diplomat could possibly cover. No one told me that we were using them as drug mules and prostitutes. No one told me that we were using them for breeders so that children could be provided sheiks, world leaders.
Obama breeding program. They can't tell us where he's from. He's part of a breeding program.
No one told me that we were using them for money laundering operations. When I rescued Kathy and her daughter, the information about this is in the book. It took me a year to put Kathy back together, literally, with a whole lot of help and a whole lot of love. Other therapists don't have that latitude. They can't love their patients. They can't keep them away from telephones. They can't keep them away from newspapers and TVs. And they wind up getting contaminated because they're highly suggestible. They see an ad for fried chicken, they can smell it. I dreamed as an ad man to be able to produce produce ads like that. I worked real hard just to get somebody to go, nice ad. But nobody ever drooled on any pages that I ever put out. And I used subliminal. I used a form of neurolinguistics. If those of you who do not know about NLP should learn. Tony Robbins is an advocate of NLP, and he teaches. As a matter of fact, he taught George Bush and he taught Bill Clinton. There's nothing wrong with Tony Robbins. He's not a bad guy. He's a smart businessman. And any smart businessman these days knows the value of neurolinguistics, or the language of the unconscious. I always call it the language of the subconscious, and I'm getting outvoted by all the mental health people. You're saying it's not right. Unconscious. Well, to me, it's the subconscious. But the language of the subconscious provided me the codes, keys, and triggers to unlock all the rest of the doors in Kathy's mind that pertain specifically to her abuse. It gave me information like bank account numbers first. And I found that rather unusual until I found out that most people who had worked around MK Ultra and knew anything about deprogramming, and by the way, it's nothing more. I'm nothing more than a hacker. Instead of hacking a hard drive computer, I'm hacking the hard drive up here.
Can we not relate, flat earthers? If our hacking goes wrong, the whole computer could go broken. They could find out you were there. Alert, alert. And then her little friends come around and ask you straw man questions.
This job as a hacker provided me some incredible information on bank account numbers. And instead of going down and looting the bank accounts and having to hide for the rest of my natural life in luxury, I took them to the FBI and gave them to them. Not because I knew they were clean or dirty. It's because I didn't want them to kill me over it. I provided everything that's in this book over a period of 3.5 years to every state, federal, and local law enforcement agency that was directly involved with this case. And the names of over 1,000 agencies and people are in this book. I wanted to get this before Congress. I wanted to get it before Congress, like happened in the 95th U.S. Congress in 1977, when the wife of a Canadian cabinet member had gone in to a mental hospital in Montreal where Dr. Ewan Cameron was practicing. I wonder why they say practicing. And she came out as a vegetable. Well, the cabinet member, I don't recall his name right now, he was just incensed on trying to find out what had happened to his wife. They put her through horrific electroshock tortures and every other conceivable torture, drugs, hypnosis. Unfortunately, many others were involved in Dr. Ewan Cameron, the founder of the APA's experiments. Some of those recovered ones, I'm in touch with 2 of them. And these people are highly functional and most likely will be doing the same thing we're doing. One of them will be in the very near future. I don't know of any in this country that have recovered to the point where Kathy O'Brien has, because no doctor can dedicate 16 to 18 hours a day, day in, day out, 7 days a week, and violate every civil right that they've got and get away with it legally. Nor can they have their patients legally go into the safes or safe of their handlers and pull out their diaries. By the way, in one of the diaries, it's got Bill Clinton's home phone number. It's got Dick Thornburg on a coke deal for $20,000. And the list goes on. This is a small group, gang. I suppose, if you consider the population of the United States, it's so fractional, these bad guys that are in control of all of us, it's so fractional that we wonder what on earth could they be doing. People wonder how does Clinton survive all of these attacks against him? How did George Bush survive the attacks against him? Well, he didn't. He went out of office, but I don't believe anything changed. I believe the guy that he had for his replacement did exactly what he wanted to do, like start out with NAFTA and GATT. We're, as David Icke so eloquently said, a one-party system. There are ways to change that, and there are a number of people that are making some very positive efforts in that direction. But that's their job. My job and Kathy's job is to stand before groups like you, very nervous, because we're not nervous that we're standing in front of you so much as we are.
We're watching Cathy O'Brien again, and we're learning about agents of Satan. I guess the reason I have y'all watching this is watch out. These people in this MK Ultra program, or there's lots of programs they're putting children in. They're coming out to be, which is, they have horrific abuse of all natures. If they survive that programming, then they grow up, they're super smart, they're super athletic, and they can see better than 20/20. Okay? So when you're being gang stalked and you feel like it's just coming from everywhere, maybe it's a few of them just being really smart. I bet they run all kinds of games. No telling. They can run more than one game at a time. Welcome, Flat Adam. Pretty lady. Thank you, Chris. So, I've heard people being... This guy came in to where I work and was like, I'm being gang stalked. They're shooting me with a laser. And, like, oh, I like your thing. And, I'm starting to think he was like a sit-in agent now. And he's always trying to tell me like how smart he was and everything. And I'm not denying how smart he was. But at some point, you got to be like, are they feeding me a false narrative? How do I challenge this? The Bible says to challenge it with scriptures, and that's just what I'm going to have to do. If it's pro Bible, it's pro Lacey. If it's not pro Bible, it's not pro Lacey. Hey, good evening, Ideas. Got to keep the TV off. Yes, because there's your programming. And she's going to start talking. She's going to get on here, and she's going to start talking about her daughter. That's just insane.
Or we want to make sure that the information you get will excite you enough to where you'll go out and talk about it, or go out and investigate it and talk about it some more. That's all we want to do. We attempt to get our books out by the case, and they get real cheap when you buy a case of them. One box of books, 36 books, $252 if we deliver them. This book is information It is truth,
Someone find
and it
me
is
this
truth
book.
that will set us free. I am absolutely intent on the idea that the information contained in this book will indeed reach the eyes of those who can see. And the information contained on this video that's being produced right now will reach the eyes of those that can hear and see truth, so that they will get out and begin to wonder why Sirhan had the same psychiatrist, Jolyon West, Lee Harvey Oswald, Timothy McVeigh. Now, boy, I'll tell you, this guy's real popular. He's right there.
Timothy McVeigh was the Oklahoma City bomber.
At UCLA. He was also the first person to call me on my unlisted, unpublished, fake name telephone out in the boonies outside of Anchorage, Alaska, after I rescued Kathy and her daughter. And a woman by the name of Margaret Singer, who may be a friend of one or two of y'all out there, but I don't miss a chance to bring out the fact that she was the one that sent another character in on us up there. I wasn't connected well enough to be told not to do anything on my own. And at the time, I was absolutely out of my mind from hearing this stuff.
If you are a victim of perception that you've had someone gang stalk you, or you felt attacked, leave it in the chat. Worth noting.
I was suffering from what is known as post-traumatic stress disorder. I was shell-shocked after hearing what Kathy and Kelly were showing me, and then or telling me, and I was showing this information to members of the intelligence community and members of U.S. Customs and other branches of federal law enforcement who validated it for me. Thank you. I apologize to everybody that buys our book and reads it, because I tried to make my portion of it informative enough to where it wouldn't hurt you. And I told Kathy that she had to include enough detail in the book, such as the anatomical details of her alleged abusers, so that we could get them into court and make them drop their pants. Kind of leads me into the presenter for the second oldest profession, or first oldest profession. I'll get to that second reverse. Now, who was first?
How do you? Okay, so a flat earth preacher. The only problem is people with eyes can't see and people with ears can't hear. Yes, and in this video, they're saying maybe they're compartmentalized. Compartmentalized. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're playing a character in their head and they've never had time to work on them.
Well, I don't know. It's a long debate in the intelligence community whether prostitutes or spies came first and second. I don't know. Ladies first, okay. That's a good one. At this point, I'd like to present Kathy O'Brien, the person who rescued my spirituality. I wasn't a bad guy, but I needed that extra push, and I'm mighty proud to have been with her for over 8 years now.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here tonight to arm yourselves with knowledge about a tool that's being covertly used to usher in what Adolf Hitler and
Yes, this is a tool. Use it. Or put it back there in your toolbox and wait.
George Bush termed New World Order, and that's mind control. I've enjoyed talking with quite a few of you earlier this evening pertaining to how mind control has affected some of you or some of your loved ones. Mind control is very prevalent in this country and around the world. These criminals that are in control of our country operate on the philosophy that secret knowledge equals power. Many government secrets and personal reputations were staked on the belief that I could not be deprogrammed to remember those things that I was supposed to forget. They were wrong. For as intelligent as these perpetrators are, they're limited in their thinking by their own immorality. They don't have wisdom. They don't think deep. And they never considered the strength of the human spirit. They never considered what would happen when a good man like Mark Phillips gained knowledge of their secrets and used them to restore a mind rather than control one. I know that I'm extremely fortunate to have survived my CIA, MK Ultra, White House, Pentagon level, trauma base, mind control victimization. Now that I'm in control of my...
Oh my gosh. Totally. I was thinking, like, and y'all can copy this idea if you want to, because I'll probably never do it. But if you're not a lawyer, I mean, if you're a lawyer, be a lawyer. But if you're not a lawyer and you need some extra work, why not be like a court buddy? A lot of people go to court alone. You could be a court buddy. And you could have like a constitution tucked away and file like basic laws tucked in your... You could have like a rolling law library / law buddy, because it's never good to go to court alone. Always bring a buddy. And if your buddy has a buddy, that's better. And if your buddy has a buddy that has a buddy, that's even better. You know what I'm saying? Never show up alone. The more eyes, the more better. And yeah, I'm not saying go out there and practice law, because I'm not going out there and say practice law, because this is not being a lawyer. I mean, let's say the client, they need a lawyer, and they go to the lawyer, and the lawyer goes, well, who's coming to court with you? And you say, nobody, because I don't want my whole family knowing about this. I just want to get it over with. And you say, well, you need a courtroom buddy. And he gives them your card, and you show up and sit with that person. Listen to what they have to say. You charge extra for a lunch. And always, I would be the best courtroom buddy ever. I would have the rolling law library. I would have the extra constitutions. You could be there. I mean, everything would be confidential, just like a lawyer. You wouldn't have to take an oath. If it's too confidential, you can walk away, you know, whatever. But, yeah, courtroom buddy. So that was my response of Flat Earth Preacher. I just went through 12.3 years of the tax court, and all judges are corrupt. The Supreme Court threw the case it out. True, but no one want to go to court. Right. Because they get alone. They get scared. They get threatened. You know what I'm saying? Your courtroom buddy would have already been through like some cases. Was there, you know, you get experience. You could help their lawyer out if they're slacking, but it's the ultimate person's job to let the lawyer do his job the best. I mean, anytime you go to court, don't go into the lawyer's office first and just cry and take up all their time. You know what I'm saying? Be prepared. Be ready when you walk in that office to take care of business, because time equals money. Money equals your hard work, sweat, and tears. So there you go.
My own mind, and ultimately my free will. I'm telling everything that I witnessed and saw and heard and photographically recorded behind the scenes of this New World Order effort. By telling their secrets, their power is eroding. I also speak out to give voice to the many mind control victims and survivors out there who can't think to speak out and tell what they know and what they've endured. I speak out for the sake of my daughter, Kelly, who's now 16 years old and is a
12.3 years? That's incredible. Where are you from? What's your other language?
Is a political prisoner in the custody of the state of Tennessee, where she's being denied any rehabilitation
I'm from Tennessee.
due to the political affluence of her abusers. She's counting on Mark and I to get this word out on her behalf. For Kelly's sake and for your sake, Mark and I have gone to great lengths to document the facts and the truths that are listed in our book, Transformation of America. Transformation of America is self-published, uncensored, so that you can have the facts that you have a right to know and a need to know.
Wow, you're the first French Canadian I've met. I've met some other Canadians, but not the French one.
These truths have been covered up and kept from all of us for a long time under a blanket of so-called national security. This is the same blanket of national security that has prevented us from obtaining justice, despite the extensive evidences and documentation we have. We have over 27,000 documents and evidences. Government insider testimony, medical records, more than enough evidence for any legal procedure in this country, including congressional. But this blanket of national security has stopped us from obtaining justice. It's time for truth to prevail. It's time that these truths were brought to light for the sake of humanity as we know it. I'd like to begin by defining mind control by my experience. I realized that my experience was extreme, that the extensive, total robotic, absolute mind control I endured is more limited than the kind of mind control that's proliferating in society. Mind control has kind of a sliding scale where you've got the total robotic mind control on one side, and you've got mind control that's proliferating, such as in occultism in this country, or Global Education 2000, where children are losing their freedom of thought and their ability to critically analyze. There's so many different aspects of society that are affected by mind control in varying degrees. It's imperative that this information get out. And as I explain my victimization, it certainly can be applied to all different facets of mind control and mind manipulation. And as Mark and I have heard so many, many times from people who have read the book and heard us speak out, that this is a thread that's tying things together. All of a sudden, this whole new world order is making sense. The erosion of constitutional values, the erosion of morality in this country, all of a sudden, it begins to make sense when we learn about mind control. I was born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan, to a multi-generational incest-based family. This means my father was sexually abused as a child, my mother was sexually abused as a child, and they were sexually abusing me. My father sexually abused me as far back as I can remember. And I've often heard him state that he began substituting his penis for my mother's nipple while I was still an infant. I tell you this so that you can understand that my sexuality was confused in infancy. It was put into an area of my brain that's much like survival, like eating and drinking would be. I tell you these facts so that you can be better armed and understand what's happening in society. And name names. Mark and I name names in our book, Transformation of America, not so that I can say, well, I was in the White House with so-and-so. I mean, I missed the whole glamour part, but this is so you know who the problem is and where these problems lie. The sexual abuse that I was enduring was so horrific that I developed dissociative identity disorder. This used to be termed multiple personality disorder, and I'm so glad they've changed it to dissociative identity disorder because it really more aptly describes the compartmentalization that occurs when a person endures trauma that is literally too horrible to comprehend. Even though I couldn't understand that what my father was doing was morally wrong, the pain and the suffocation of his abuse was so extensive that I developed dissociative identity disorder. It certainly was incomprehensible. There was no place for it in my mind to deal with such horror. Therefore, I developed a compartment in my brain, a little area behind amnesic barriers that was actually the neuron pathway shutting down in my brain in order to compartmentalize the memory of abuse so that the rest of my mind could function normally as though nothing had happened. So if I'd see my father at the dinner table, I didn't remember sexual abuse. But as soon as he unzipped his pants, the part of me, that part in my brain that knew how to deal with that horrific abuse, the neuron pathways actually physically opened up so that that part of my mind could deal with my father again and again and again as needed. I certainly had a lot of experiences within that compartment that dealt with my father's abuse. But I didn't have a full range of perceptions. I had a very limited perception, a very limited view. Therefore, I'm so glad it's not termed personality anymore. I developed another compartment in my brain to deal with my mother's abuse. Her abuse was primarily psychological. She suffered from dissociative identity disorder herself, and I don't hold her accountable for her actions the way that I do my father, who is fully aware of what he was doing. My mother, in spite of her inability to control herself, destroyed any remnants of self-esteem that I might have developed. And her abuse was so horrific that I developed another compartment in my brain just to deal with my mother. I developed another compartment to deal with the child pornography that my father was subjecting me to. He was earning his living as a worm digger on a 6th grade education and supplemented the family income with child pornography that was being distributed through the local Michigan mafia pornography ring. At that time, there's a criminal faction of our government that was interested in targeting children such as myself for mind control, because this compartmentalization of memory was something that they deemed ideal for keeping government secrets. After all, if I couldn't think to remember, how could I tell about it? Additionally, people who suffer from dissociative identity disorder develop a photographic memory behind those amnesic barriers, because the brain has a defense mechanism that when...
There you go. Photographic memory. You ever see someone like looks a little bit too close to your mail? I mean, normal people is one thing, but you got super soldier? Why you got so many bad kids?
Trauma occurs, it photographically records events surrounding trauma. And an example of this would be that many of you who are old enough to remember, when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, most people know exactly where they were and what they were doing, because this was an event that traumatized the nation. And this exemplifies how the mind photographically records events surrounding trauma. So behind these amnesic barriers, I had a photographic memory, which the government deemed ideal for programming. That way I could deliver messages to and from government leaders, or in my case, also drug lords, who were involved in
human robots, NPCs. Why can't we get to them? Because their programming won't allow it. They'll glitch out and they'll start self-destructing. That's what they're designed to do. Even if they weren't in this MK Ultra program, the TV is enough of an MK Ultra program. It's got you as a child. It traumatized you. It shows you things you shouldn't see and hear.
Funding the black budget and funding the New World Order controls. They're interested in programming me so that I would deliver the messages verbatim. When I delivered messages
verbatim. She's a super soldier. You can tell. I think she'll get into it, but she was supposed to be killed.
I delivered exactly what I was told, using the voice inflections of my abusers, with no conscious comprehension of what I was even saying. It was just a tape recorder, just parroting out exactly what I'd been told. Another aspect that the government was interested in is that as a dissociative identity disorder person, I had no concept of time, because I was going from compartment to compartment of my brain with no memory of what had happened before. Therefore, I had no ability to even keep track of time, and the concept of it was just absolutely impossible. And it also makes for, if I didn't know what...
Right, if JFK was a super soldier, then that would make sense that he could be Jimmy Carter. They can carry on 3 or 4 or 5 different lives. They're smart. They got photographic memory. They can see better than 20/20. They'll recite something without remembering. This is insane.
What I was doing earlier.
They're not real people. They broke down the human soul when they were babies. They're just robots from here on.
I wouldn't know to be tired while I was overdoing something else. Therefore, a person who suffered from dissociative identity disorder had extensive physical endurance, just superhuman strength and ability to keep going and going and going and going. Dissociative identity disorder persons also develop 44 times visual acuity. Very often that's why you see them wide-eyed with the whites around their eyes, because they're actually taking in more of their surroundings than the average person.
You'll see the whites of their eyes because they're taking in more than the regular person. Are you hearing the super soldier agent of Satan? I mean, all it takes is for Jesus to save one.
44 times more detail than the average person sees. That certainly makes them perfect marksmen for mercenary operations or for intelligence in different areas that the government was interested in developing mind control. I was a chosen one, or a prime candidate, for mind control because of the sexual abuse that I had endured. My sexuality had been enhanced. Therefore, I was used as a sex slave and also delivered messages to and from these government leaders. At that time, because a government, this criminal faction of our government, was so interested in dissociative identity disordered persons, they knew that any child that was subjected to child pornography had to have endured trauma so horrible that they had to be suffering from that disorder. Therefore, this criminal faction of our government sanctioned this child pornography ring so that they could identify and target children such as myself for the project. At that time, the politician, local Michigan politician, mafia politician, the politician who was protecting this Michigan mafia pornography ring was a guy named Gerald Ford. This is the same Gerald Ford that went on to become the first unelected president of the United States. Gerald Ford, I never perceived his political affluence. I only perceived him as another abuser like my father, because Gerald Ford also sexually abused me as a child and sexually abused me right on through my mind control victimization until Mark rescued my daughter Kelly and I in 1988. Gerald Ford is not a pedophile per se. He's what I refer to as trisexual. He'll try anything. Any age, anybody, anytime, anywhere, just as long as he had control. Because he had a perversion of power, in addition to his interest in mind control. Therefore, it was Gerald Ford who came out to our house and explained to my father how to raise me in the project according to government specifications. My father had been caught sending this child pornography through the U.S. mails, and therefore he was approached and told that if he sold me into that project, that he would gain immunity from prosecution. My father remains free from prosecution to date for so-called reasons of national security.
But nevertheless complex. I'm going to give you all a background tonight.
They caught her father with the U.S. mail.
And an example of this would be that many of you who are old enough to remember, when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, most people know exactly where they were and what they were doing, because this was an event that traumatized the nation. And this exemplifies how the mind photographically records events surrounding trauma. So behind these amnesic barriers, I had a photographic memory, which the government deemed ideal for programming. That way I could deliver messages to and from government leaders, or in my case, also drug lords, who were involved in funding the black budget and funding the New World Order controls. They're interested in programming me so that I would deliver the messages verbatim. When I delivered messages, I delivered exactly what I would. Mafia politician, the politician who was protecting this Michigan Mafia pornography Catholic Church of the Jesuit project. So there were 7 of us in all. The rest of nations. My father had been caught sending this child pornography through the U.S. mails, and therefore he was approached and told that if he sold me into that project, that he would gain immunity from prosecution. My father remains free from prosecution to date for so-called reasons of national security. My father thought it was just absolutely wonderful and immediately sold me into the project. He felt like the government condoned child abuse. So did I. I certainly felt like the government did. And my father went on to have 5 more children to raise in the project, so there were 7 of us in all. The rest are still awaiting freedom. Once my father agreed to sell me into the project, I was taken routinely to Mackinac Island, Michigan, which is a political retreat where the Michigan governor's mansion is located. It was a bohemian grove of sorts where politicians met and discussed New World Order controls, where they discussed mind control of the masses, mind control in the school systems, how to use occultism as a trauma base. One of my sexual abusers at that time was the Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Trudeau. Pierre Trudeau is a professed Jesuit. Now, the Jesuits are an intelligence arm of the Catholic Vatican. There's a criminal faction within these Jesuits. I'm certainly not saying all Catholics are bad, nor am I saying all CIA is bad or all politicians. There's good and bad in everything. But nevertheless, Pierre Trudeau represented this criminal faction of the Catholic Church, of the Jesuits, who believed in mind control of the masses because they wanted to be the one world church in the New World Order. The money that was being brought in through the church was funding New World Order controls. And he firmly believed in mind control. Another sexual abuser of mine was then Michigan Senator and later U.S. Congressman Guy Vanderjagt. This is the same Guy Vanderjagt that went on to head the Republican National Committee that put George Bush into the office of president. It was at Mackinac Island, Michigan, when I was 13 years old, that I was dedicated to the senator who had become my owner in this mind control project. That's U.S. Senator Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd is a Democrat from West Virginia. And again, as you'll notice as I reveal any names, that this doesn't have anything to do with party lines. Democrats and Republicans both are involved because it's not about party lines. It's about who's for the New World Order and who's not. Nevertheless, Senator Byrd had been in office as I've been alive. He's still in office today. He's been head of our Senate Appropriations Committee, which means he held the purse strings of our country. He decided where money would be spent. And I know from having witnessed and experienced and saw so much behind the scenes that Senator Byrd was appropriating money in directions that would allow for New World Order controls. Not only that, but my father, for having sold me into this project, was granted a lucrative military contract for making camshafts for military automobiles and all. My father became extremely wealthy on his 6th grade education. Senator Byrd, as my owner, would decide where I should go, when, what operations I would be forced to carry out during the Reagan-Bush administration, what places I should be taken specifically for mind control programming. Senator Byrd directed all of my activities. Also around that time, I'd made my first communion in Muskegon St. Francis de Sales Church. Having made my first communion, I also endured an extra ritual after that was referred to as the right to remain silent. That's RITE, as in ritual. This involved Congressman Vanderjagt and the head of our church at that time, a Father Don. And they subjected me to an occult blood ritual. This was so horrific. It was this reversal of the Catholic Mass. It confused my mind because when a person's operating on a subconscious level because they're so traumatized that consciously there's no place for what they're enduring, the subconscious mind has no ability to discern and to question and to reason the same way that the conscious mind does. And this reversal of the Catholic Mass into occultism just made it all seem to run together in my mind. It was absolutely horrific. This blood ritual was so horrible that my mind readily accepted the mind manipulation that I endured afterwards, a hypnotic language, the neuro-linguistic programming, mind-controlled programming that actually changed the way that my brain was functioning, so that, that part of my brain that I said would open up to deal with my father's abuse again and again, they changed that so that they decided when, where, and how that particular compartment of my brain would be opened and accessed. And they replaced the triggering mechanism with hypnotic codes, keys, and triggers, hand signals. There's also phone tones that can also open those neuron pathways and give access to the compartmentalized memory as well. They replaced that at that time. And this was with this right to remain silent. I also had a silence in my head after that, because up until that time, I heard, it was just my own voice, but I heard my voice arguing back and forth with all these different perceptions and from the different compartments in order that I could formulate some kind of a decision about things. I remember before the right to remain silent that I had some free thoughts of my own, and I had hoped for a place in the world where people didn't abuse each other.
I just caught that. Right, you have the right to be silent. That can kick in a lot of people's programming. You got to say it to them, so they'll submit.
I'd hoped to have 10 children that I knew would be at least 10 children in this world that weren't abused. I'd hoped for those things, but with the right to remain silent, I lost my capacity, my ability for free will thinking. I lost my ability to even hope anymore. I lost all free will entirely. This right to remain silent silenced this argument that always went on in my head, and instead, all I ever heard from that point on was the voices of my abusers directing me, telling me exactly what it was I was supposed to do. I could only robotically follow those instructions and carry them out. By the time I was ready for high school, Senator Byrd ordered that I be sent to Muskegon Catholic Central High School. At that time, there was an enormous emergence of information. The Catholics had long since learned the effects of trauma on the human mind. They'd learned it and kept records of it for so many years, with such things as the Spanish Inquisition and other aspects where people who didn't follow the belief systems were wiped out. The Crusaders had also recorded a great deal of information pertaining to trauma on the human mind. This information was being merged with the Hitler-Himmler research that the CIA had taken and had been advancing on. The combination of the merging of the information was very powerful. And Muskegon Catholic Central was a place where this information was being brought together. It was at Catholic Central that the very basis, the very groundwork for Global Education 2000 was being implemented. This is Goals 2000, outcome-based education. There's many different names for the program that's being implemented in our school systems. It's being forced on our children by the federal government.
I always thought these speakers, these ladies that speak for all the teachers and stuff, the ones that get on TV, always thought they seemed too good. You know what? If it seems too good to be true, then it is. And that includes people.
Global Education 2000 was designed to increase our children's learning capacity while decreasing their ability to critically analyze.
I learned about flat Earth. I got baptized. I accepted Jesus Christ in my heart, and I got baptized. Did I get baptized at the right church? I don't know. Did I get baptized in the right religion? I don't know. But that's what he told me to do, and I did it. And that's how you are not going to be a victim anymore. You're going to be a super soldier for Jesus.
That way they would just readily accept whatever they were told without any question and just take all the information in. The Catholic Central, I got straight A's. I did really good in school because I was photographically recording everything in class. I endured occult ritual in the school chapel, as did numerous other students in the school. I certainly wasn't the only one. As a matter of fact, that by that time, I really thought the whole world was involved in this kind of abuse. By then, my whole environment was saturated with it. This occultism, this trauma, created the photographic recording of all that I learned in school. Of course, I had no ability to critically analyze it or to creatively use it in any way, but the information was sure in there. It was while I was at Catholic Central that Gerald Ford went into the office of president. I had been conditioned by that time to believe that I had no place to run and no place to hide. This was a phrase that's used to lock in mind control victims of varying levels. There's no place to run, no place to hide. We're watching you. I certainly felt like I had no place to run and no place to hide. Who would I turn to? I couldn't turn to my parents. I couldn't turn to my church. Couldn't turn to my school. Couldn't turn to the local politicians. And now I couldn't even turn to the President of the United States. I truly felt locked in, which is exactly what they wanted, with total control of my mind. Of course, since then, I've learned otherwise. And Mark wisely taught me while I was in the deprogramming process that I did have a place to run. So right at them. And I had no need to hide. Obviously, they do, by the way. They're covering up all their acts with the national security blanket. After I graduated from high school, Senator Byrd ordered that I be transferred to Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee was heavily involved in mind control at that time through the country music industry. And above all, the proliferation of...
I don't want to name any country music singers because I am in Tennessee. But there are a lot of them that sing too good to be true.
CIA cocaine operations within the country music industry were already in full swing. The political corruption in Tennessee was just all the way to the top.
Oh, yeah, we just elected this. They did Nashville. They just elected this Mayor Cooper. He's from the past. He's so scared of COVID, he can't stand it. Baby.
The country music industry provided a cover for mind control slaves like myself to be taken around the country to the various places as designated, and also to distribute and deliver the large quantities of CIA cocaine that was coming into the country. It's my experience that the CIA's so-called war on drugs is no more than the CIA eliminating their competition as they take over the drug industry worldwide.
The CIA apparently took crack to Compton, and the CIA made LSD for the 60s, the hippies. Just saying.
They took their war on drugs to our street corners and turned our streets into a bloodbath. The country music industry provided the cover for distributing the cocaine, so Senator Byrd wanted me to be within the country music industry. Besides that, he fancied himself an entertainer of sorts, and he fiddled on the Grand Ole Opry from time to time. When I was first sent to Nashville, he was playing on the Opry that night, and he had a musician behind him, a guy named Wayne Cox. Wayne Cox later told me that playing music behind Senator Byrd wasn't the only way that he backed him, but that he backed him politically as well. After the Opry that night, I endured an occult ritual again. Occultism is oftentimes used as a trauma base for mind control.
Opry?
Who can comprehend that kind of a trauma? Blood ritual is absolutely horrible, and it's a perfect trauma base for mind control, for the compartmentalization of memory. I witnessed Wayne Cox murder a railroad bum down at Nashville's Union Station. It was abandoned at that time, and there were bums around, and he shot him right between the eyes and cut off both of his hands, which was Cox's MO for murder. After this blood ritual, this horrible trauma, I was programmed that Wayne Cox would be my first handler in MK Ultra Mind Control. As my handler, Wayne Cox would follow Senator Byrd's directions and instructions, and above all, he would be subjecting me to more trauma sufficient to satisfy the numerous compartments Senator Byrd wanted developed in my brain for mind control programming so that I could carry out various operations during the Reagan-Bush administration. I endured numerous occult rituals after that. Wayne Cox at that time was working directly under the direction of Louisiana Senator J. Bennett Johnston, and he took me to his hometown in Chatham, Louisiana. J. Bennett Johnston at that time was heavily involved in mind control operations because he was running a band of mercenaries out of Louisiana. At that time, this band of mercenaries were going in and out of South America. There was a lot of arms deals going on. There was, and most importantly, when the airplanes would fly these guys down to South America, they would come back full of cocaine, which was being distributed on our streets. Wayne Cox was triggering these mercenaries into operation by showing them a severed hand from another one of his victims, which re-traumatized them into the occult ritual that they had already endured and accessed a specific compartment of their brain. And he told them that J. Bennett Johnston wanted them to give him a hand and carry out a certain operation. He would then give the instructions and the guys would follow him through. So J. Bennett Johnston was heavily involved. At that time, it was 1978, and it was determined that I had endured sufficient trauma to carry out my first trial run operation. An enormous quantity of cocaine had been flown in on one of these operations, and I was to deliver it into the neighboring state of Arkansas. By that time, Bill Clinton's drug operation was in full swing. He was governor of Arkansas, and I delivered this cocaine to a remote airport in Ouachita Forest, which I've since identified as Mena Airport. I also delivered a little packet of information and a small quantity of cocaine, a personal stash from J. Bennett Johnston, to Bill Clinton. I delivered it to Bill Clinton, and he cut out 2 lines of the coke, and he did inhale. That certainly wasn't the only time I saw Bill Clinton using cocaine. My sexual experience with Bill Clinton was extremely limited, in spite of the fact that I was a sex slave. It was my experience that Bill Clinton is bisexual, leaning far more towards a homosexual end. All I've ever seen him involved in was a homosexual activity, with very limited experience with him myself. Whereas my experience was much more prevalent with Hillary Clinton, because Hillary is also bisexual, leaning more towards a homosexual end, and it was she who accessed my sex programming to fulfill her perversions. Around the same time, J. Bennett Johnston subjected me to some other mind manipulation that involved, instead of an occult theme, an alien theme. Now these guys who are manipulating my mind and programming me for mind control purposes claimed, and these criminals in control of our country as well, claim to be gods, demons, and aliens, in order that I feel totally helpless, in order that I felt like they were beyond my realm to affect. And it certainly worked at that time. J. Bennett Johnston told me that he was an alien. He told me that he had been part of the Philadelphia experiment, and when the ship disappeared, it came back a spaceship. This is in keeping with kind of an air-water mirror theme that NASA uses quite frequently, a reversal, because again, the subconscious mind doesn't have any reasoning capacity. J. Bennett Johnston then showed me his office at General Dynamics a then top secret stealth. Here was this triangular stealth that wasn't in any of the school books, wasn't being talked about anywhere, wasn't out in the newspapers or anything else. It was being withheld. It was still a top secret weapon system. But I saw this triangular stealth. It looked like a spaceship to me. I'd never seen anything like that. And everything that J. Bennett Johnston was doing and he was involved in certainly was alien to me. So it was easy for me to accept the idea that what was happening was in fact being perpetrated by aliens. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as aliens. That would be foolish of me to even say anything like that at all. But what I am saying is that it was my experience that these were claiming to be aliens. If there's a reality out there pertaining to any alien influence, we need to sort out the government misinformation and disinformation and mind manipulation techniques that they're using. I know for a fact that the plan is to make all of us feel totally helpless, that what's happening is beyond our realm to affect because we've been taken over by aliens, that our Independence Day is dawning. So beware of that. Understand that those criminals have been keeping information.
Independence Day is dawning.
And technology from us under the blanket of national security. They are 25 years ahead of us, at least technologically. Can you imagine what they've got now? 25 years ahead. What's happened that you're aware of in the last 25 years? Microwave ovens, we've got computerization, and they've had access to all of that to continue their own advancements. They're way ahead. So when they say, it's aliens, and they show us some incredible technology, don't fall into the trap of feeling totally helpless, that this is beyond our realm to affect. Superstition begins where knowledge leaves off. And they have been keeping knowledge from us for a long time. People have all kinds of belief systems. And I'm sure each and every one of you has various and different belief systems as well. Regardless of what your belief system is, it is imperative that you know that these criminals are people. They are within our realm to affect. They need to be held accountable for their actions and their crimes against humanity. It was 1980 and my daughter Kelly was born. She was born directly into...
She was making, back then it was all about Bill Clinton, and he said he tried marijuana, but he didn't inhale. So she was just trying to break up the ice with a joke because she was still talking about Bill Clinton. We all know he snorted it, not inhaled it. I mean, she's just a joke.
To the MK Ultra Mind Control Project on a much higher level, a more sophisticated technological level than I was subjected to. In addition to trauma, she was subjected to harmonic mind control programming on NASA installations literally since birth, before her brain even had a chance to form. As soon as Kelly was born, Senator Byrd figured I'd been traumatized enough by that time and ordered that we be transferred back to Nashville, Tennessee to carry out operations during the Reagan administration. But being within the country music industry, we had a second handler. His name was Alex Houston. Alex Houston is a ventriloquist, stage hypnotist in the country music industry. Above all, he carries out criminal covert CIA operations that fund the black budget. And this certainly included bringing in large quantities of cocaine and distributing them